Good morning and welcome to the Sugar Shack. I don't know if you know this about me, but a couple of friends and I every year come out to Linden, and my friend owns a plot of land out here with a lot of maple trees on it. And so we have tapped the trees and we take the sap and then we make maple syrup from it. So I've been doing that for, I don't know, I think 8 years maybe. But every time I'm out here, I feel a sense of refreshment in myself, I think mentally, but also spiritually. And there's many ways in many parts of this area, this property, where I've learned things about my relationship with God and about my faith. And so I want to share a couple things with you. It might seem kind of strange or nerdy, but I'll show you a little bit about the process of making syrup, and then I'll tell you what I've been thinking about. So come on in. All right, so this is where the magic happens. As you can see, there's this big metal vat, and in this metal vat is a bunch of sap. And so the sap comes in here. You can see it looks pretty clear, right? Because it's mostly water. It's actually just a little tiny percent sugar. And so what we do in order to make syrup, in order for us to make the sugar amount or content go up, and we need to make the water content or amount go down. And the best way to do that is to boil it. And so here we've got this evaporator that's really hot, and so all the sap is going in there and it's boiling away, and eventually the water just gets boiled away in water vapor. So for us to make it that hot, we actually build a fire underneath the evaporator. So you can see this big firewood pile that we have, and we build our fire underneath. I'll show you. It's raging right now. And so there's a lot of things to be mindful of when you're boiling sap, like levels to be aware of, and temperature and sugar content and all of that. And one of the things that seems the most basic is just keeping the fire hot. So for a long time I would boil sap and not really get a lot of syrup, and my friends would come after and boil the batch that I had started, and they would get all of the syrup off of it. And I think inside I'd get a little bit frustrated about that. So I tried to figure out what was it about my boiling technique that was not getting a lot of syrup. And long story short, what I came to realize was the fire that I built, I was so worried about the fire going out that I kept putting wood in. Now the problem with boiling water or boiling sap with fire is that you need to keep the temperature really high, especially at the end when you want to make syrup. It needs to be the hottest it can be. But every time you open that door and you put in new wood, it kills the boil, because the new wood is relatively cold. And so it takes a little bit of time for it to get really, really hot again. So every time I open the door and put wood in, I would actually make the temperature a little bit lower instead of higher. And so this constant need to or worry, I guess, about the fire going out and putting wood in and making the effort actually was making it harder for the syrup, for the sap to become syrup. I know that's a weird kind of roundabout way of saying this, but what I learned from that is sometimes my own efforts can negate what God is doing in what I can't control or what I can't see. Sometimes is better than what I can control. And what I mean by that really is I was putting all the wood into the fire and constantly thinking about the fire and worrying about the fire, and all I was doing was quenching it, really, like making the temperature lower, instead of just letting it burn and letting it get hotter and just trusting that that process would take place whether or not I put more wood on it or not. So the lesson that I learned from that, I guess there's two passages that we can refer to. One is in Matthew, where Jesus is talking about these people who are wondering, what should we eat or what should we wear? And instead of worrying about every day, every day has enough worries for itself, not to worry about it, but to seek first the kingdom of God, and then all of these things will be added to you. And then the second is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It's a classic, and sometimes I think we take it for granted. But trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. And I think sometimes in our lives, especially for me, I always think like, what can I do to make this better? Or how can I solve this situation? And sometimes it's actually less is more. The less that we do, the more that God can do. There's a great song, actually, if you want to know kind of who I was like 10 years ago, one of the bands that I listened to a lot was called Hocus Pick. And Hocus Pick has a song that says, let go and let God. So that's what I want to encourage you today to do, is to let go and let God. Abdicate the throne in the kingdom of your heart and let God take over. So have a great day, take care, and God bless.